Hello everyone! I hope you've all had a restful time since my last video. In case you didn't know already, I'm now making a podcast in addition to these videos. It's different from these lessons, not only because it's a podcast and you can only listen to them, but also I wanted to do something a little different. My podcast is called The World and English. On it, I have two segments. I start out talking about something that interests me. It might be a current event or a story or just some information that I want to share that I think people might be interested in also. I'm hoping that I'll get ESL students and also some native speakers. I'm especially interested in world cultures, so I'll talk about that, but I want to talk about a variety of things, and I think people might also be interested in these things. In my second episode, I devote the whole segment to talking about just what culture actually is. This is based on a couple of lessons that I used to give in the classroom. I invite you to listen and let me know what you think. The second segment of my podcast is about the English language. I'll be talking a little bit about grammar sometimes, but I don't want to just repeat what I've already said on these grammar videos. Instead, I'll be talking about things like idioms and phrasal verbs. There are a lot of these to explain. I also have a phone number that you can call and leave a message if you have a comment or a question. I'm hoping to get some ideas for future episodes from these calls. It's a new number, but so far the only call I've gotten was from a Chinese scam. I actually had a Chinese student listen once, and she said they wanted me to call a number and win something, you know, that kind of call. So please call me and speak in English. Leave your name or a nickname so I can address you in a future episode. The number is 949-441-1056. Okay, on with today's lesson. Today I'm going to talk about the second conditional. This is one of the unreal conditionals, which means that they're used for impossible or improbable situations. The second conditional provides an imaginary result for a given situation. Come on, I'll show you what I mean. The second conditional is used for the present and future situations that are untrue, impossible, or imaginary. They're also known as present and future unreal conditionals. An example sentence would be, if I lived in Rio de Janeiro, I would go to the beach every day. I don't live in Rio de Janeiro, so I can't go to the beach every day. Well, I can't go to a Brazilian beach every day. I do live in Southern California, so I guess I could go to the beach every day, but it wouldn't be quite the same thing. I know, I've been to Brazil. So how do we construct these sentences? Well, let's see. Let's analyze that sentence. In the second conditional, just like the first, the if clause gives the condition and the main clause gives the result. Use the simple past in the if clause, and in the main clause you'll use would plus the base form of the verb. In this sentence, it's go. Let's look at some examples. If I lived downtown, I would walk to work. Notice the verbs. The first one, lived, is in the simple past. That's in the if clause. In the main clause, you have would plus walk, which is the base verb of to walk. Let's look at another one. Would we save money if we bought an electric car? I wanted to include a question. So this time, we know that the first clause is the main clause because it starts with would. Would goes in the main clause. Let's check to make sure this one would make sense as a sentence on its own. Would we save money? That's the first clause, and that could be a sentence on its own, so we know this one is a main clause. As a main clause in the second conditional, the verb should be a base form. Is it? Well, it's save, and yes, that's a base verb. So the verb in the if clause is bought, and you know that's a simple past tense, right? So this is a correct sentence in the second conditional. There's just one thing I want to point out about these two sentences. Notice that the first one has a comma after the first clause and the second one doesn't. That's because we have to put a comma after the if clause if it comes first. Be careful and remember this. The verb after if is simple past, but it's about something that happens in the present or future. For example, if I had a dog, I would name him Ace. Notice that the verb in the if clause is had, which is in the simple past. I don't already have a dog, and I've never had a dog named Ace. This is not something that actually happened in the past. I don't know if I will ever have a dog named Ace, but if I do, it will be in the future. I still have to use the simple past for this sentence. Let's try another one. If we went to the park, we could play basketball. In this sentence, went is the verb. It sounds like I might be suggesting we go to the park, but it's still not something in the past. It's possibly in the future. Now, I do want to show you here that you can use could or might instead of would. They work too. Now, if we're going to be using be in the if clause, we have to use were. That's the rule, and we have to use were whether we're talking about one person or a group of people. This is just when we use be. So we could say, if he were smart, he would study engineering like his father. We have to use the simple past tense of the verb in the if clause, and we have to use were when that verb is be. This sounds kind of strange to some people, but this is the correct way to say this. Let's look at another example. I were rich, I would travel more. And if he were more responsible, he would be more successful. Let me warn you that you will hear native English speakers, saying was instead of were. That's because it sounds kind of weird to us too. It's correct to use were, but there are a lot of native English speakers who think the correct word is was. If you're ever corrected by a native English speaker, ask them to show you the rule. They might learn something. Okay, maybe you don't want to challenge a native speaker. It's up to you. Here's another reminder. When you see apostrophe D, it could mean would, but it could also mean had. Here are a couple of examples. She'd come to the dance, but she doesn't have a nice dress. In this case, apostrophe D means would. She would come to the dance, but she doesn't have a nice dress. This one, she'd already left when we got home, means she had already left when we got home. So just watch out for those and remember that it could be either word. And that's all I have to say about the second conditional. Please remember that I'm now going to be adding a new video once a week on Tuesday afternoons, since I'm also making podcasts. Those will be released on Thursdays or Fridays. I don't have quite as much control over when they're listed, but they'll be up before the weekend. Thank you for watching. I hope that you're finding my video lessons helpful. Next week, I'll be talking about the third conditional and mixed conditionals. Have a great day, and remember to be kind to each other. I'll see you next time.